Dust and Shadows, a Western thriller. Act 1, The Calm Before the Storm. The sun beat down on Coyote Gulch, baking the dusty main street and the ramshackle buildings that lined it. Dusty McGraw, a young cowboy with a weathered face and eyes the color of the wide-open sky, rode into town, the rhythmic clatter of his horse's hooves echoing in the stillness. He'd come seeking work, maybe a little adventure, a break from the lonely life of a drifter. Coyote Gulch, with its promise of a saloon and the scent of brewing coffee, seemed as good a place as any to start. Dusty dismounted in front of the Last Chance saloon, tying his reins to the hitching post. He pushed through the bat-wing doors, the scent of stale beer and sawdust hitting him like a wall. Inside, a few cowboys lounged at the bar, their voices low and murmuring. He nodded a greeting and bellied up to the bar, ordering a whiskey. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Dusty found himself talking with Old Man Harlan, a rancher with a face as craggy as the mountains that surrounded the town. Harlan was a kind, weathered soul, and Dusty found himself drawn to his quiet wisdom. The next morning, Dusty's world shattered. He stumbled upon Harlan's body beneath a gnarled mesquite tree, a single gunshot wound marring the old man's peaceful face. A cold dread gripped Dusty's heart. Harlan hadn't just been killed, he'd been executed. News of Harlan's death spread through Coyote Gulch like wildfire. Whispers of foul play filled the air. Dusty learned that Harlan had been investigating some shady land deals, whispers of a powerful rancher named Silas, Blackjack Thompson, and his iron grip on the surrounding territory. A knot of unease tightened in Dusty's stomach. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that Harlan's death was no accident. Act 2, Shadows of Deceit. Dusty couldn't shake the image of Harlan's lifeless body. He felt a responsibility, a burning need to find out what had happened. He wasn't a lawman, just a cowboy, but something about Harlan's honest, open face spurred him on. He found an unlikely ally in Annie Mae, a woman as tough and resilient as the desert scrub. Annie Mae ran the town's general store, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She'd known Harlan well, and she shared Dusty's suspicions about Blackjack Thompson. They formed an uneasy alliance, their shared grief and thirst for justice binding them together. Their investigation led them down a dusty trail of deceit and corruption. They discovered that Harlan had uncovered evidence of Thompson's illegal land grabs, a scheme to force smaller ranchers off their land. Blackjack's men, led by a ruthless gunslinger named Snake Riley, were a constant threat, their shadows lurking around every corner. Dusty and Annie Mae faced intimidation, threats, and even a close call when they were ambushed on the outskirts of town. Dusty's journey became a dark reflection of the struggle between right and wrong, the shadows of doubt and fear closing in on him. He realized that the fight for justice wasn't just about Harlan, it was about the soul of Coyote Gulch. Act 3, The Reckoning. The tension in Coyote Gulch was as thick as the dust that hung in the air. Dusty and Annie Mae knew they were running out of time. Blackjack Thompson was growing impatient, his grip on the town tightening. They had to act, and they had to act fast. They decided to confront Thompson directly. Armed with the evidence they'd gathered, they rode out to his sprawling ranch, a monument to his greed and power. The ranch house loomed against the setting sun, a dark silhouette against the fiery sky. Inside, Blackjack Thompson sat at a large oak table, surrounded by his men. He sneered at Dusty and Annie Mae, confident in his power. But Dusty wasn't intimidated. He laid out the evidence, exposing Thompson's crimes for all to see. A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Then, Snake Riley drew his gun. The room erupted in chaos. Gunfire echoed through the ranch house, the air thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. Dusty and Annie Mae fought for their lives, their courage fueled by a sense of righteous anger. Dusty, drawing on skills he didn't even know he had, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. He managed to disarm Riley, the gun clattering across the floor. In the end, justice prevailed. Thompson's crimes were exposed, his reign of terror brought to an end. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Dusty stood tall, the weight of the past lifted from his shoulders. He had faced the darkness, and he had emerged, not unscathed, but stronger. Coyote Gulch was safe, for now, and Dusty knew that even in the dust and shadows of the West, hope could still bloom. The aftermath of the shootout left the Thompson ranch in disarray. The silence, once shattered by gunfire, now hung heavy, broken only by the whinnying of horses and the occasional creak of a wind-battered door. Blackjack Thompson, his power stripped away, was left to face the consequences of his actions. His men, scattered and demoralized, offered little resistance as the townsfolk, emboldened by Dusty's bravery, rode out to reclaim their stolen land and their shattered peace. Dusty, leaning against a porch railing, watched as the first rays of sunlight painted the landscape in hues of gold and rose. He felt a weariness settle deep in his bones, the kind that comes after a hard-won battle. He glanced at Annie Mae, who stood beside him, her face etched with a mixture of relief and lingering sadness. They had faced death together, and the bond forged in that crucible was stronger than either of them could have imagined. "What now, Dusty?" Annie Mae asked, her voice soft. Dusty looked out at the vast expanse of the prairie, the land stretching out before them like an endless promise. "I don't know," he admitted, a rare vulnerability in his voice. "Maybe I'll stay for a while. Help rebuild. Coyote Gulch deserves a chance." He knew he couldn't stay forever. The restless spirit that had driven him to wander was still alive within him. But for now, he felt a sense of belonging, a connection to this small town and its resilient people. He had found something here, something he hadn't realized he was searching for, a purpose, a sense of community, and a quiet respect. Over the next few weeks, Dusty worked alongside the townsfolk, helping to repair the damage done by Thompson's reign. He mended fences, rebuilt homes, and listened to the stories of those who had suffered. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, courage and compassion could prevail. He also found himself spending more time with Annie Mae. Their shared experiences had created a connection that went beyond friendship. They talked late into the night, sharing their dreams and their fears, their laughter echoing through the quiet streets. A tentative romance blossomed between them, as natural and unforced as the wildflowers that dotted the landscape. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the town, Dusty found Annie Mae sitting on the porch of her store, a book in her lap. He sat down beside her, the silence between them comfortable and warm. "I've been thinking," Dusty said, breaking the silence. "About the future. About us." Annie Mae looked at him, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "And what have you decided?" Dusty took her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "I've decided that I want to stay. At least for a while. I want to see what the future holds for Coyote Gulch. And I want to see what the future holds for us." Annie Mae smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up her face. "I'd like that, Dusty," she said. "I'd like that very much." Dusty knew that his journey wasn't over. The West was a vast and unpredictable place, and new challenges would undoubtedly arise. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace, a sense of belonging. He had found a home, a purpose, and a love that was as strong and enduring as the land itself. The dust and shadows of his past were still a part of him, but they no longer defined him. He had found his place in the sun, and he was ready to face whatever the future might bring, with Annie Mae by his side. The tranquility that had settled over Coyote Gulch proved to be as fragile as a desert flower. The echoes of Blackjack Thompson's reign of terror still lingered, and the seeds of greed and ambition, though dormant, had not been entirely eradicated. A new threat began to emerge, this time not in the form of a single, domineering figure, but as a creeping, insidious presence that threatened to corrupt the very soul of the town. A railroad company, flush with cash and hungry for expansion, set its sights on Coyote Gulch. They saw the town, not as a community, but as a strategic point on their map, a means to an end. They offered promises of prosperity and progress, but their true intentions were to exploit the land and its resources, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and shattered lives. Dusty, having settled into a comfortable routine with Annie Mae, felt a familiar unease stirring within him. He had seen this kind of greed before, disguised as progress, and he knew the devastating consequences it could bring. He tried to warn the townsfolk, but the allure of wealth and development was a powerful siren song, especially for those who had struggled for so long. Annie Mae, ever pragmatic, saw the potential benefits of the railroad, but she also shared Dusty's concerns. "We need to be careful, Dusty," she cautioned. "These companies don't care about us. They only care about their bottom line." Dusty nodded, his jaw set. "We need to find out what their real plans are," he said, "before it's too late." Together, Dusty and Annie Mae embarked on another investigation, this time navigating the murky world of corporate interests and backroom deals. They discovered that the railroad company's promises were nothing but a smokescreen. Their true objective was to acquire the land surrounding Coyote Gulch, not to build a depot, but to extract valuable minerals, leaving the town a desolate wasteland. They faced opposition not only from the railroad company, but also from some of the townspeople, blinded by the prospect of quick riches. Dusty found himself once again fighting for the soul of Coyote Gulch, but this time the enemy was not a single villain, but a faceless corporation, more difficult to confront and more insidious in its methods. The tension in Coyote Gulch mounted, dividing the town and pitting neighbor against neighbor. Dusty and Annie Mae found themselves increasingly isolated, their warnings falling on deaf ears. But they refused to give up. They knew that the future of Coyote Gulch, and their own future together, depended on their ability to expose the truth. They gathered their allies, those few who still believed in their vision of a just and prosperous community. They worked tirelessly, digging through records, talking to disgruntled employees, and piecing together the evidence of the railroad company's deception. Finally, they had enough. They called a town meeting, presenting their findings to the assembled crowd. The atmosphere was tense, the room divided. The railroad company representatives, slick and well-dressed, tried to discredit Dusty and Annie Mae, painting them as troublemakers, obstacles to progress. But Dusty and Annie Mae stood their ground, their voices ringing out with conviction. They showed the townspeople the maps, the contracts, the hidden agendas. They spoke of the long-term consequences, the environmental damage, the loss of their land, and the erosion of their way of life. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The townspeople, faced with the undeniable truth, started to see the railroad company's promises for what they were: empty words designed to mask their greed. The climax came in a heated confrontation, with Dusty and Annie Mae facing off against the railroad company executives. The future of Coyote Gulch hung in the balance. Dusty, drawing on his experience as a cowboy and his unwavering sense of justice, delivered a powerful speech, reminding the townspeople of their heritage, their resilience, and the importance of protecting their community. In the end, the people of Coyote Gulch chose to stand together. They rejected the railroad company's offers, choosing to preserve their land and their way of life. The railroad company, defeated and exposed, was forced to retreat, leaving Coyote Gulch to rebuild and prosper on its own terms. Dusty and Annie Mae, standing hand in hand, watched as the sun set over the town, casting a warm glow on the faces of the people they had fought so hard to protect. They had faced another challenge, and they had emerged victorious, their love and their commitment to Coyote Gulch stronger than ever. They knew that the struggles were not over, but they also knew that as long as they had each other, and as long as they were willing to fight for what they believed in, they could face whatever the future might hold, together. The railroad's departure left a void in Coyote Gulch, but it was a void quickly filled by a renewed sense of community and self-reliance. The townsfolk, having faced a common enemy and emerged victorious, were more united than ever. They understood the value of their land, their traditions, and their shared history. Dusty and Annie Mae, now pillars of the community, continued to work tirelessly for the betterment of Coyote Gulch. They helped establish a local school, ensuring that the next generation would have access to education and opportunity. They also championed sustainable farming practices, protecting the land from overexploitation and ensuring its fertility for years to come. Their love deepened with each passing year, a quiet, steady flame that warmed their hearts and illuminated their lives. They built a small house on the outskirts of town, a place where they could escape the hustle and bustle and enjoy the peace and tranquility of the prairie. Their home was filled with laughter, shared meals, and the comforting presence of each other. Dusty, the wandering cowboy, had finally found his home. He no longer felt the need to roam, his restless spirit finally at peace. He had found love, purpose, and a community he cherished. The dust and shadows of his past still lingered, but they no longer haunted him. He had faced them, conquered them, and emerged stronger and wiser. Annie Mae, the pragmatic shopkeeper, had found her soulmate. She had discovered a love that was as strong and resilient as the land she called home. She had found a partner in Dusty, a man who shared her values, her dreams, and her unwavering commitment to Coyote Gulch. Years passed, seasons changed, and Coyote Gulch continued to thrive. The town became a beacon of resilience and community spirit, a testament to the power of unity and the importance of preserving one's heritage. Dusty and Annie Mae, their hair now streaked with silver, watched with pride as the town prospered, their legacy living on in the hearts and minds of the people they had touched. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a breathtaking tapestry of colors, Dusty and Annie Mae sat on their porch, watching the world go by. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves of the cottonwood trees, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers. Dusty took Annie Mae's hand, his touch gentle and loving. "We've built a good life here, Annie Mae," he said, his voice soft with contentment. Annie Mae squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. "We have, Dusty," she replied. "We've built a life filled with love, laughter, and purpose." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. They had faced many challenges, overcome many obstacles, and together, they had built a life that was rich and fulfilling. They had found love in the dust and shadows of the West, and their love had blossomed into something beautiful and enduring. As the years turned into decades, Dusty and Annie Mae's love story became a legend in Coyote Gulch, a reminder that even in the harshest of environments, love, courage, and community could prevail. Their legacy lived on, not in grand monuments or written histories, but in the spirit of the town, in the resilience of its people, and in the enduring love story of Dusty and Annie Mae, a love story that was as timeless and enduring as the West itself. And as the final curtain fell on their long and fulfilling lives, they knew they had left the world a better place, their love story etched in the very heart of Coyote Gulch, a beacon of hope shining brightly in the vast expanse of the American West. Join the adventure with the Western Echoes, Cowboy Tales Unleashed. If you're loving our cowboy stories and captivating tales, don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all our future posts. Saddle up and ride along with us.